Good morning folks, and welcome to the workshop of Armitage Leather. We're going to be making a pouch. Who doesn't want to make a pouch? This is just one video in a series of videos looking at pouches specifically. All the designs and templates, totally printable, and you can print off the designs. They're in the pack, glue them to card, and you can work from them. There's a whole video on your template, so you can have a look at that. You can go to my website www.armitageleather.com/shop, and it's £12 to download the pack. It's 40 odd pages, crammed full of information. If you print all the templates off, and some of the pages you have to print twice because there's a duplicate for different ends, you'll end up with 10 different designs of pouch. Now, if you were to use this pack just to cut your teeth, fantastic, you're going to learn so much. The video is going to help, the pack's going to help. If you want to make bushcraft items, perfect. You can make these pouches as intended, make 10 of each one, take them to a show, sell them, fund your craft. Awesome, and kudos to you for that. Your other option, and this is where I'd like to lean you towards, is to look at the value of the techniques contained in the pack and the videos. Also in the pack is a large explanation on increasing the size and looking at your sin tolerances of each pouch to turn it into a larger pouch, a bag, whatever you want it to be. So it's looking at taking that skill set and transferring it onto bigger items once you're comfortable with your techniques. So if you struggle with any of the techniques needed to make this pack or any one of the packs contained in the series of videos, you can go to my Vimeo channel. It's an online resource of multiple videos, not just on the pouches or the techniques using the pouches. It covers a whole range for many different items. All the tools and materials used in the videos to make these pouches are listed at the back of the pack. They're all hyperlinked, so if you keep the pack online, you can just click and it'll take you straight to it. If you have any questions or see any glaring mistakes, drop me an email, let me know, I'll adjust. In this video, we're going to look at the 2-ounce tin full gusset pouch. Sort out your pack, get your templates cut, and we're good to go. This is the full gusset 1 ounce. No, it isn't. It's the full gusset 2 ounce pouch. If you want to see the short gusset 2 ounce pouch, the pack contains the templates for it. Have a look at the video for the 1 ounce short gusset pouch. The principles are identical, but I thought I would finish the pack off on a slightly larger pouch, and this is a nice size, and I'm going to use a Lamport leather. I have a lovely piece of dark rich brown 2.5mm shoulder that I'm going to use to create my template. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is decide if it's going to be a Sam Brown stud or if it's going to be a press stud. I think I'm going to have a press stud. I've had a run on press studs recently and I quite am liking them, so therefore I'm going to continue with the press stud. So I'll stick a 4mm hole. This front section I think has a 3mm hole, so I will just expand that. So I have my holes marked up, I have my extremities cut to size. So the first order of business is to place, have a look at the leather, make sure I've got a few creases there, so I'm going to bring it up a little bit. So I've got a nice piece of leather, and at which point then exactly the same. In fact, I will just trim this off here, get rid of that, and then you can see more of what I'm doing on the camera. So I've got a lovely piece of deep rich dark brown Lamport 2.5mm shoulder from Metropolitan Leather, and I shall lay it over. I'm going to make this pouch for my toolbox. I'm not going to put a belt plate on the back. If you can see where the belt plate will go, but this will never get worn on a belt. It will get used, so I'm not that fussed about adding a belt plate to it. If you want to see the belt plate being added, look at the 1 ounce pouches, short gusset and full gusset. One has a belt loop, one has a belt plate. Go to page 25 of the pack and you will see how to add the belt plate or pouch there. And there we have it. I'm going to now swap over to the short piece and I shall do exactly the same for the front section. I will just, in fact I'm going to pull it back here to this side, because then I can run a strip off here for my gusset. All the dimensions are in the pack for this. You don't need to worry about working anything out. It's all worked out for you. And we'll see the difference between the 2 ounce tin and the 1 ounce tin when we come to add the gusset, because the gusset was a little snug on the 1 ounce tin. This is now getting bigger. It's getting closer to what a bag might be, and all of a sudden, because the size increases, the gusset gets a little bit easier to deal with, and as we increase it even more, the gusset will get easier to deal with. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run a strip of leather off here, split it down to 1 mil. That'll be my gusset. I shall then cut out my front section, cut out my back section, and then we'll come back when we're looking at adding holes. So I'm just having a quick look at the pack, because I want to cut a strip of leather for my gusset. I need to know how wide it wants to be and how long it wants to be, minimum. It can be much longer, because the length of the gusset is going to be dictated by the amount of holes, not by measurement. But I need a minimum measurement to work to. So everything that you need to know is in the pack: how wide you need to make it, how thick you need to make it, and the minimum length for you to work to. So using those dimensions, I will cut myself a strip of leather for the gusset. Back part cut out, corners trimmed, hole made, and marks ready for my stitching. Exactly the same for the front, and I have a 1 mil thick piece of the same leather at the right width, longer than it needs to be, ready for the holes to be added once we know what the holes are. And we're going to go to the front for that. So I now need a hole count so I know how many holes to add to my gusset. But before I do so, I need to add the holes to the front, count them. That'll give you my hole count. So I have my top hole marked there, and I shall bring my dividers around, meeting up beautifully with that centre hole that we've marked there, and then travel round the corner, coming back up to that top hole that we've marked there. Everything's lining up. If everything's lining up, everything's going to work. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I am going to pop a hole on my centre. I'm just going to have a look at that, making sure that that is indeed centre. Happy with that, and what I shall do is just give that a little bit of a kiss. I then want to find that with my big iron, so I'm going to bring my right hand tooth as close to this curve as I can. So that's 4, or the third tooth in from the left, and I shall give that the gentlest of kisses. So I've got a row of marks coming up to this curve. I then know, going back to my centre hole, I think it's third hole in, and I'm now taking the left hand tooth, again exactly the same as I did here, right up to that point where the curve begins. And I shall pop that on there, and I shall give that a kiss. I'm not going to fully go all the way through, because if I do get it wrong, I can go back and put them in the right position. So I know this row of holes is bang on centre. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work down. I can work up or I can work down. I know the theory being that if I work up, I come to that hole anyway. So if my measurements, my cutting is all right and accurate, the theory being I can then come down from that point, give that a kiss. I can then come down from this point a little bit high there we go, that's better, and give it a kiss, and then work down towards, and I'm overlapping 3 holes again to the point where the straight line begins to go into the curve. So the theory being I overlap 3 holes on this side as well, and again it's at the end of the line where the straight line begins to go into the curve. So I now have all of my holes worked out. The theory being now is I should just be able to add a couple of holes bang on there, and that's my corner taken care of. Absolutely spot on. So knowing that, I can just simply commit to those holes. So straight on this line here, give it a thump, lost my little pulling block, found my little pulling block, and then overlap 3 down to that last hole of the straight down the bottom there. Good thump. Do exactly the same on the other side, working down towards that corner. Having confidence in your technique, overlapping 3 means you know what to look for, and when it all comes together, it's extremely satisfying. And then working back from that corner there. At which point then, kick in my corner there. It's like working black, this leather. It's very, very dark, difficult to see the lines, but it looks really nice when it's done. Exactly the same again. And there we go. No long or short stitches. We will do exactly the same on this section here. And then what we're going to do, what I'm going to do, what you're going to do, because if you're using a different iron, you'll end up with a different hole count, is I'm going to count these holes. When I've got that number, when I've made these holes and they're both the same, we'll then take that to the gusset. Let's come back when I've got to that point. So, all the holes are made. A little bit of a tap down just to tidy it up because they looked a little bit ropey. Counted both pieces and I have 65 holes on both. We know what's coming next. We need 65 holes on our gusset. So I've got a nice piece here. What I'm going to do is square up one end. It's about 1 mil thick or so. I'm going to use the spine of the rule to set my leather up against. I shall then use a square to square off one end. Well, I'll move everything and then do it all over again. So leather up against the rule, square up against the rule, and very, very gentle pressure. If I pull too hard, I will drag that leather out from under the rule and end up with a twisted cut. So being gentle, always looking for confirmation. Easy way to work out we're not working off the wrong end of a gusset is just trim or do something to the other end, because if we spin it round and start working from the wrong end, we can see that's not where we want to be. This is where we want to be. So I need to add 65 holes to this gusset. So I'm going to run my stitch line down, starting about 4mm in, and what I can do there, because I know this is set to 4mm, take it to the end, press, and there's my mark. And I can do exactly the same on this side. Go back to the end, press, and that's a little short, so I can go back to that mark and drop my line in there. At which point now we are ready to add our 65 holes. And this is the lovely thing about having a okay, the video went funny, that wasn't me. Of having a tool that's 12 teeth long. So our first one, we can pop right on that mark. The more care we take with the first strike, the better the run will be. And we will smack through nice and firmly. That's given me 12 holes. If I overlap, that'll give me 10 more holes, I'll have 22. So I'm going to overlap 4 teeth. And that will take my hole count to 20. If I overlap 2 teeth every time, it'll give me 10 new holes. So every strike is an extra 10. So I have 20 holes, overlap 2, that will give me 30. Overlap 2, that will give me 40. Overlap 2, that will give me 50. Overlap 2, that will give me 60. So all I need to do is add 5 teeth to that. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Overlap all the other teeth. Just check again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then smack. That's given me 65 holes. Count them. Don't assume it's right. Double check. I will then start on this side, and again, confirmation. All about confirmation. We can put our iron back in our first side, set our square up against the edge of the leather, move it over, and we're happy with that. We're having a look, and we are good. So that's 12. Overlap 4. That's 20. Overlap 2. That's 30. And that'll give me 5 extra teeth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we are sorted. We can even use our square just to check those holes are bang on, and that's the sort of precision we're looking for. We've just done 65 holes on both sides, and when we check with a square at the end, it's absolutely spot on. And I just noticed I've got a little bit of rye with that iron there. That's not very good, is it? Just put it in the right position, and let's clean that up considerably. So again, we don't need to check the measurements. All we need to do is put our divider in the centre of the last hole and mark, and that is 4mm on from the end, at which point then we can put this back onto the board against our rule, put the square up against the rule, ride it up to that 4mm mark, and then trim. And irrelevant of what length that piece of leather is, we just know it is the right length for this pouch, and we know this because there are 65 holes around the outside of the front and back, and there are 65 holes on the length of the gusset. And if we stitch by numbers, one hole every stitch on both pieces of leather, it will just go round and meet at the other side perfectly. So that's sorted. The next thing to do is to crease. Now we're getting into the habit. We know we can cold crease shoulder. It cold creases really well, but the issue that we have is we go around some very tight bends and we can run off. Now you've seen me use a purse crease, we can use a screw crease, we can use a number of things. But did you know you can also use your dividers? If you don't have a purse crease or a screw crease, we can use the dividers. And that's what we're going to do here. Now we can do this cold. We can press nice and firmly all the way around, and we can go around that curve very cleanly with the dividers. And we can have a lovely line all the way around that matches our stitching. But if we were to heat this up a little and lay it down a little flatter, it gives us quite a nice little line to follow. Now, you're heating steel, you're touching steel. Don't heat it up so much that the heat travels up far enough to burn your finger. So press it on and look at that lovely line that we get. It's a rounded line, but it's there to stay. And if you do have difficulty with your creases, especially going around tight corners like that, this can get you out of so much trouble. Look at that, absolutely spot on. And we can then change it and add a different line if we want to. And we can do exactly the same at the top here. We've lost a little bit of heat, add a little bit more. Just to keep it going. There we go. Beautiful. And then we will just add a line at the top and bottom of our gusset. And there we go. Don't put your dividers back on your board, it'll melt. Stick it on a piece of metal or another piece of leather or a bit of wood somewhere out the way. A quick way of dealing with a crease with the tools that you may already have. Believe it or not, you can actually do that with a fork. The next thing that we're going to do is to bevel. Always bevel the back first, bevel the front. Do exactly the same on the large section. Didn't spot that, did you? Nobody told me about that. Well, enough people work really hard to get the Halloween shell cordovan stamp into their items. I've engineered this to ensure that I get my Lamport Metropolitan leather stamp on it. So there we go. That's what I'm doing. That was intentional. To be fair, it's painted on. I can, if I want to, sand it off, refinish the inside. I'm not going to bother. There we are, a lovely bevel around the top with a lovely crease. That is just looking gorgeous. I've done that. Now, where's this little Palo Santo? I'm liking this. I'm really looking forward to the rest of these turning up. See, I went to do it again and it did actually cut. Look at that. This is number one. This is exceptionally fine. There's a 0 coming, which is even finer than this. But I would suggest a number 1 would not be enough for something of this thickness. I'm probably looking at a 3 or a 4. Well, let's see what turns up, and I'll do a review of those and let you know. So that's that done. The next thing that we're going to do is give it a lick and a slick, black the edges up with edge coat, and I will probably stick my stamp down the bottom at the back here. I'm going to keep this very clean, very simple. It's going to be a very basic pouch, and the whole thing is just going to come together like so. But it's to give you the idea of what's happening. So let me finish all the edges, lick it, slick it, edge coat it, wax it, polish it, and when I've done all of that and added my stamp to the bottom at the back, we will then look at edge coating and stitching. No, I'll have done the edge coating. We'll then look at stitching it all together and then finishing these edges on the gusset. Bear with me. And there we have a lovely logo impressed into the leather. Very pleased with that. Really nice. Very sharp, centered, not twisted. However, it is upside down. So there are a number of ways that you can deal with that situation. It's not the first time I've done it, and it won't be the last. I'm constantly rushing and doing things and making mistakes because you get confident. I know how to do that, and the next thing you know, you've made a mistake. So a really quick idea. I'm not going to do it on this. I'm going to leave it be. It's one of those quirky things that it's going to stay. But what you can do if you get to that position, I've done it before where it's important, and you've got a choice then of what you do. A really, really quick and easy way is to get another piece of leather, put your logo onto it, cut it at the right place, and then stitch it over the top, so the whole thing becomes a little bit of a panel, a showpiece, and it looks very intentional. That is an option. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave it be. I'm going to let people see my stupidity. There's a number of bits and pieces in the workshop with the logo upside down. For fun, it stays. So it could be one of those production runs that's worth thousands. Right, I'll start the bidding off at £2,000. You want it, you let me know. So that's sorted. I just thought I'd throw that in there rather than trying to hide it. Everybody makes mistakes. Let's get back to licking, slicking and blacking the edges up. So here we have the unique, one-of-a-kind, glueless and clueless, upside down, 2-ounce tin pouch. So we're ready to stitch it together. There's no glue. I'll put the front piece in, left hand priority. If you're right-handed, you put it to the right hand. Stitching towards myself, and I'm going to use a 0.6 braided polyester thread, tiger thread, for those of you. It appears to be far too long. Yeah, we got very enthusiastic with this one, didn't we? And I am going to stitch it in yellow. I'm going to put a piece of brass on the front for the Sam Brown stud. So the old proviso, brown leather, brass furniture, yellow thread, and I shall continue stitching throughout. Now I don't intend to really hammer at this. It is a case of you stitching. I would like to think you've got to a point that your stitching is good enough to deal with these pouches. However, if you are really cutting your teeth and your stitching still needs work, this isn't the video that's going to help that. I'm not explaining how to stitch these pouches in this video. I'm explaining how to put them together, cut them, and use the templates. If you really need to look at your stitching, then go to my Vimeo channel. Have a look. If you're right-handed and you want to use the modern saddle stitch, then look at the modern saddle stitch right-handed. If you're a southpaw like me, the left-hand version is there as well. If you want to be looking at a more traditional approach and learn how to use a pricking iron and awl, that's there as well. All tastes are catered for. Go on to Vimeo, Armitage leather, secrets of the workshop. But this is a very simple pouch. There are 3 pieces to it: the front, the gusset and the back. We are currently stitching the gusset to the front. Once I've completed that, I will finish these edges. I will give them a light sand to ensure they're even. I will then bevel the inside and out, lick it, slick it, add edge coat, and then bond all that together with some beeswax and heat and give it a polish. Once I've done that, making sure the hardware is in place, the sand brown stud. In fact, no, it's not going to be sand brown stud. There we are. I've started stitching in yellow thinking I'm going for a sand brown stud. I've set this up to be a snap. So I really do have my head all over the place in this pouch. So it just goes to show you, even when you don't know what you're doing, you can still make a pouch like this. There we are. We've got away with that one. What do you think? So let me finish stitching this. I'm not going to beat you up with the stitching, folks. It's very, very simple. It's stitching by numbers. First hole on the front gets stitched to the first hole on the back, or the gusset. You then stitch the next hole on each piece in turn. There are 65 holes on the front, there are 65 holes on the gusset. As long as you stitch each hole in turn, one at a time, it will come together. And that is as difficult as that's going to be. This is really looking at making the pouch with all the work front end, making all the holes, getting your cuts right, counting your holes, preparation. Once you get all that preparation, and to be fair, I appreciate I'm the one that is really professing the excellence of getting it right, and this is the bloke you just watched get his own maker's mark upside down on the pouch. What do I know? But if you do all of that work, all that preparation, yes, it takes a little longer, but the benefit of all that front end work is when you come to stitching, it is bang on. You find it very, very hard to get it wrong. And you have a face stitch on the front, you have a face stitch on the back. Very, very important if you want to hand over an item and be proud of it. And it's those issues that people have suffered. So I've got to the corner. I'm going to lift the gusset out. So the gusset is now going to sit next to the clam, not in it. I'm going to bring this forward slightly so I can put my next needle in. It doesn't match up with the hole because the hole is trying to go in a straight line. Bend the gusset round on the back. Seek out that hole with your saddler's harness needle and it will pull round. Where was I? So you do all that work front end and it feels like it's taking longer, but where you're stitching, and I do know some people that this would take a couple of hours to stitch because of the problems they're having with stitching something like this, all of a sudden it's down to tens of minutes. You're probably looking at about 20 minutes maximum because all your holes are made. Even with problematic little corners like this, of bending your lever round sharply to suit that bend, it all still comes together, even on something like this. Imagine how easy it would be with a larger curve on a bigger bag. All of a sudden the scope just opens up, and especially if you're not having to commit yourself with glue. And there's a lot of people out there I know that don't like glue because the stuff doesn't go in the right place, and when you stitch it together it's glued in the wrong place, so you're fighting with it all over again. And there we are, that's that corner dealt with. So simple. Job's a good one, done. Spin it round and we continue on the straight. So let me finish this pouch. I am going to stitch the front to the gusset. I will then finish the edge, stitch the gusset to the back, finish the edge, and then we'll have a quick look, have a giggle over the maker's mark being upside down, and move forward. But I've simplified this video, hopefully shortened it. Hopefully there's enough information in it for you to work forward. If you're struggling, look at the 1 ounce short gusset pouch, look at the 1 ounce full gusset pouch. There's more detail in those, and if you're still struggling with the techniques, check out my Vimeo channel. Right, I shall speak to you again when all the stitching, edging is done and we're on the board. And there we go, the pouch is complete. Using the pack, the templates, it all comes together. Everything's the right shape, everything's the right size. We even put the stamp on upside down just to make it unique. But to be fair, that's a cracking little pouch. That's lovely. I mean, you know, if you want a camera case, measure the size of the tin. Everything on how to do that is contained in the pack. If you have an item that you want this case for, then get the pack, look at the dimensions, understand your seam tolerances, and it will all come together. And there we go. That is a really nice, simple little way of cutting your teeth on making pouches like this. 2 ounce tin, full gusset pouch. But let's just say, for argument's sake, we take that out, and if we were making a bag, we wouldn't have an opening quite this large. It's what's called a pinch, if you like, just to explain that. If we have a single item pouch like so, and we need to grab it out, we need enough to pinch. So there's about an inch there, so we can pinch an inch to take it out of the pouch. For some reason I pull that at an angle. There we go. So that pinch extends to the flap, but if we were making a bag, we wouldn't have that level of pinch. It would come down much closer to close up, and at which point, I mean, to be fair, even if we did the dimensions, brought that down to there, strap on it, that would make a nice little bag with the pouch, the flap coming all the way down to the front of the pouch. But hey, it's choices. Folks, you have the pack, you have the dimensions, you have the options. Play. Little bit of Lamport, dark, rich, brown leather, absolutely gorgeous. 3 pieces of leather, back, front, gusset, everything's there. You could knock them up, stick your Lego on the right way round, and see where it takes you. I hope that helps. If, just to finish off, you want a belt plate on the back, do so. It's all, again, about choices. I can't really sort of say this anymore, but just slap that right in the middle there. It's all worked out for you. So if you wanted to, I mean, that's actually the wrong one. That's the short gusset pouch. That's the full gusset pouch. But if we were to look at that, everything's worked out. Put your holes where your belt plate or belt loop wants to be. Take that off, pop it on there, and that's where it'd be. And you can wear that on your belt vertical or horizontal, unless you do the loop, at which point it's vertical only. But this is just going to get thrown into a bag and used, unless of course somebody decides to buy it for £2,000. Folks, enjoy, have fun, go and play and go and see what you come up with. Take care.